introduce myself once more. I know that some of you have already listened earlier. I'm EY's COO for blockchain and everything blockchain. Also take care of all of operations and sales enablement for it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Giorgio Villani, and I'm a full-stack Web3 developer. I have a dev shop in Houston called Spindletop Digital, where I build Web3 solutions in the space. My previous role, I spent about 10 years in oil and gas, specifically commodity trading. And yeah, I think there's a lot of applications for international commodity trading as well with Web3.
Thanks. My name is Evgeny. Hello, everyone. I'm co-founder of Fluence, where we are building a cloudless computing platform. So it's a kind of decentralized computing replacement to centralized cloud computing platforms. And I mean, I've been in Web3 forever since it was not Web3 actually. Like, I learned about Bitcoin in 2011, and then at some point it became Web3. So like I've been following space a long time, building Fluence since 2017. So yeah, quite a big journey.
Wow, you need to be rich. Bitcoin 2011, now, wow, 60,000. What? It was good time back then. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. What we are actually doing here, so this is a Web3 use cases stage, and this first panel is actually to talk a little bit more about like what makes sense to build on blockchain, and maybe what doesn't, and how we can kind of recognize that. So Clare, maybe you can give us, because you've been in the tech for a while as well, so you've seen other emerging technologies.
I heard that. He said I'm old. That's what he said.
It's that experience.
I heard that. No, it's true. It's so. Yeah. Why do projects fail? Why does new tech and emerging tech fail, right? And there are some real standard kind of classic reasons that apply to blockchain just as they do to anybody else, right? So everybody knows Gartner's trough of disillusionment, and you've heard of the dot-com crash, and all the players that should be part of the story of emerging tech. You have VC investors, and you have developers, and you have sort of an over-eagerness and everything else. And all of those things are true, I think. But I think more interesting is why. Why do they fail? Some really basic things. Lack of a good business strategy. And in that I would include, by the way, if you've got a use case which is actually a hammer looking for a nail, i.e. you've got a great bit of tech, but you've not really thought about what it would be used for properly, right? There's another one. People woefully underestimate the effort and time it takes to create regulatory guardrails needed for a new business model, right? That applies to blockchain just as it does for anybody else, right? Skills set, right? Scarcity of skills always happens at the beginning of an emerging tech. And by the way, yeah, people run out of speed and run out of runway because of it. And then there's another one, which is the tricky one. And certainly in my time, I spent a lot of time with IBM, and I can tell you that there are some real classic situations where as well timing, and that's a really hard thing to manage. Are you coming at the right time for everything else in the marketplace and for all the other technologies that you're dependent on to succeed, right? And we forget about that sometimes. But specifically for blockchain, very specifically for blockchain, I would say one of the big reasons that there have been so many projects that have failed, and by the way, Gartner, I don't know if you saw that, they estimated last year that only 15% of blockchain companies' projects will be successful. So an 85, and now I'm not sure if I believe those numbers. I have no idea how they came up with them. And I would question whether some of the things that they're talking about as failures are really failures, to be really honest, but that's a different discussion. But I would say that one of the key ones is that I think for blockchain in particular, it's been really, really hard for people to understand the value proposition of decentralization. and it's led people down some rabbit holes. And I think that's very much the case. And I can think of a couple of examples. If you look at TradeLens, TradeLens is a really good case. It's been well documented, and if you listen to the interview of what comes out of it, they had difficulty getting commercial traction, right? This was not for lack of effort. They were on the journey for several years, and it wasn't for lack of investment. They had difficulty getting commercial traction because the competition came from places they didn't expect it. Why? Because at the core of their problem, they didn't need public blockchain. They didn't need blockchain to do what they were trying to do, and so they ended up competing with a whole myriad of other smaller, different tech solutions that together combined was a more attractive proposition. And that's something to think about early in emerging tech, because whatever is the status quo, the other technologies that people are familiar with and know and can talk about and have skills in their teams will always trump. So you don't want to leave the door open for that. You've got to be differentiated. You've got to know why you're using any technology for what it's doing.
That's actually a very good point. And I would like to ask Evgeny, because you've been around also since 2011. So you've probably seen many use cases coming in, trying out and kind of failing. So if you look kind of on your journey, and now we are building the kind of decentralized cloud computing, how you identify, is there some pattern in good Web3 use cases where blockchain actually brings value, and on the other hand pattern of really wrong use cases, people are we use blockchain for this and it always fails?
Yeah, seen that a lot. Actually, one important thing about crypto to understand, crypto moves in cycles. You will have this every few years. There's a market growing. Everyone is excited. Everyone is trying to do a lot of stuff. Put everything on blockchain. Do these enterprise blockchains. Put chairs on blockchain. But it's people experimenting with everything. Then 90% of this fails after it. On the bear market, just doesn't survive because it doesn't find product market fit. And from the business perspective, crypto is not actually different from Web 2, because you either have product market fit or not. So you either do something that is some people need and want and ready to pay, or not. And there's a lot of illusion happens from the speculative part of crypto, that you can issue the token, and if it's a bull market, everyone is excited, everyone is trading this Bored Apes or some crazy stuff in NFT, and then and because people just speculate, and people think that if they have this picture in their wallet, they're gonna sell it tomorrow for a higher price because everyone is kind of buying right now. But then the market narrative changed, and they actually realized that this picture cost nothing. Right, because no one wants it, because there's no real value in it. It's only speculative value. So usually the clear distinction between kind of use cases that kind of more make sense than less make sense is that you should find some real value for the user, not just speculate. Speculation is great. Speculation helps to accelerate user growth, get more people interested, and so on and so forth. But it's temporary. It's gonna end when the bear market hits. It's just these people gonna disappear. So you're gonna need to find real users for the product, and that's the whole thing. I can give example from computing. So decentralized computing is a idea that many people getting excited about for many years, and one of the first big projects in crypto. Well, before crypto, there were decentralized computing projects like Boeing. They were it's kind of a crowdsourcing computing power in the world to solve some complex scientific tasks. And then one of the first projects in crypto was called Golem. It's still I think it still exists. And they were very big in 2017. They did great big ICO, raised a lot of money, but their product was very, very basic. Their product was just, okay, we have some application that you can run on your computer, so you connect your computer to the global network, and then someone can basically send the rendering video task to you and other computers, and then together you kind of like do this job. And for this, this client pays in Golem tokens, and you receive Golem tokens. And this use case basically like it didn't really work well because of a variety of reasons. But one of the big reasons was just you force customers who have real, they have real need for computing power for rendering video for their, work or, in their company, like to do video production. You force them to pay in crypto, in tokens, and they don't even know how to use it, where to get it, how much, while it's volatile. Like if I spend $1,000 to this, why it costs 500 today or like more, it just doesn't, it's not viable thing to like tool to use. And even if it's cheaper a little bit than centralized alternative, like centralized alternative is more predictable than this thing. So basically the problem of all, like first this wave of putting crypto into infrastructure products or like computing projects was that they were toys and not real products. They were just, okay, we did this great experimental first Golem version, but it's not really production product that we can really onboard to users because they're not gonna stick. They may give it a try, but then it's not gonna work. And and basically like the next evolution of computing products are much more sophisticated. We think about the user. We compare it to like real experience that people have in the cloud. So like it's really we are really trying to think of how we make our product, like how we made switching from centralized this comprehensive products to our new stuff and make it really valuable for the user, like to minimize all this like crypto volatility stuff and so on and so forth. Like we have stable coins like right now, but there's much more aspects to it.
No, I can definitely see that, and I will get to you, Giorgio, in a second. But actually, Claire, maybe this is a good point you want to kind of touch upon a little bit, because like from mass adoption and enterprise adoption, I think the stability and predictability it's actually very important. Or do you see that kind of from like your enterprise clients?
Yeah, well, I would say what you're describing there is you've got to think about what matters to your customer, right? And if you want people to pay you for anything, any service, any product, no matter what you want them, when they're paying you for it, they're paying it for you, and they have needs, they have requirements. And for small companies, by the way, predictability is an essential. It's an essential. You're watching every penny, and you're trying to create budgets, and you're trying to plan your work. So just asking yourself right up front what actually matters, what matters in this scenario would have already told you right early on that it wasn't the right one. I mean, I think you've got to start to ask the right questions and be willing to just hold that thought just for a minute before you start to jump to the conclusion as to what the right technology might be or otherwise. And the other thing I would say is as well is that we've got to remember emerging technology, and I think you said it really, really well because you used the word experiment. And that's why I would say it's not that 85% of projects have failed. You can't fail if it's an experiment. Actually, that bugs me when people think like that, right? This is innovation. Do you learn from it and do you take it forward? The problem is when you are speculating and expecting a different outcome and you put everything that you've got into it and expecting it to be
sometimes the problem is that if the project doesn't fail and they are still there, they have tons of money, but there is still no product.
That's also a problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a few of those around where we just know they've got the investment, they have no idea what to do with it.
I know.
No idea. That's why you need a variety of skills always.
Let's not name drop just now, but like I can tell you later. And so another use case actually like which is popping up, and Giorgio, you probably know more about it. It's like kind of the city DAOs, like the DAOs, like how like coordinating people within some region. And I know you are building the HtownDAO, which is for the Houston. Like, what is the product market fit there? What is the need actually to create a DAO for like a Houston?
So I guess take it back. Like, what actually initially triggered us to try to discuss, the creation of HtownDAO? I mean, we had a bunch of different communities within Houston, a lot of different Web3 oriented communities. We have the Bitcoin meetups, we have Ethereum specific meetups, we have, general kind of like ecosystem Web3 meetups, and a lot of the time that people aren't coordinating anything with each other, and so everybody's just getting a certain critical mass within their domain, but they're not able to actually sustain some achievable, sustainable growth within the space, right? And people become a little bit apathetic within the area. They're like, okay, I need to go to Austin, or I need to go to Denver to see some of the bigger events, as opposed to being able to kind of like form something into something a little bit more sustainable. So what I ended up doing with my co-organizer, we reached out to the other meetups, John Keller and Karen Scarborough, who run the Ethereum meetup. We reached out to them and we were like, hey, why don't we just combine efforts into trying to create higher quality, like a sure space, because organizing a meetup is actually kind of complicated. You have to find spaces. You're kind of doing things on a shoestring budget, so you have to like really do everything lean. And so to be able to do it with more than just 2 people, like with 4 people, or with all the meetups in Houston, it becomes much more impactful. So the reason why we decided to kind of like go down the City DAO is just because it was more effective, right? Like, so we weren't necessarily looking for a customer fit. We were just saying, hey, we need to combine our efforts because our primary objective is to grow the Web3 ecosystem in Houston. Houston has a ton of potential. We're the 4th largest city in the United States. And how do we achieve this goal more effectively? And what came up was like, hey, let's have a DAO, like where everybody's just a member, and we combine efforts. We delegate responsibilities to certain people within their specific domain. The Ethereum meetup was very, they have very technically oriented discussions, which are highly needed within the space. But that might be something that somebody might just want to sit around and talk about the next coin, and so it was like a communal need within Houston, and so we just ended up starting to build it. And then also another thing that I found out was that I just started building like the website, and just recently the Dallas Web3 community reached out and they're like, hey, we like your front end. Let's just can we fork it? And then so I was like, absolutely, let's do that. Let's get everybody involved so we can make Texas much more impactful, and then we can have our own thing in Texas. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different timeline, because it's not necessarily like we're looking for a product. We just want to support the Web3 community within Houston, and so that's our primary objective. And we're not, theoretically, it should be mutually beneficial to all members.
And it's all about coordination.
Yeah.
And it's also the Wi-Fi password. So if you are wondering how to get on the Wi-Fi, it's a coordination. And I can relate to it because like we pulled this event together, and we are also like couple of communities basically just like self-organizing to do the whole 11-hour event with stand-up comedy and party and so on. So yeah, but what you actually touch upon, and I think this is very interesting for Web3 use cases, is forking. Because a lot of stuff is open sourced. EY open sourced the Nightfall. I believe you also work with some open source software for your thing. Like, how you and any of you, how you think like the forking itself and the like more like being more open source actually can enable more use cases being built? Is that something like what can be the advantage of the blockchain industry?
My 2 cents on this particular topic is that it's, especially coming from Houston, where Houston is very corporate. We have major industries in Houston that are like massive. Like we have a massive medical complex. We're one of the largest ports in the United States. We have huge influence with oil and gas, and it's very difficult to we're building an entrepreneurial community in Houston, but it's very difficult because generally people who are entrepreneurs in Houston are doing their main corporate job, and they're doing this like on the side. And there's actually a funny story about a guy, Eric Calderon Snowfro from Artblocks, which is one of the largest generative art platforms, NFT platforms, started in Houston. He wasn't even a developer. Like he sold tile. Like he sold tile like just a couple blocks away from where I live. And the only reason why he took the time to build Artblocks was because it was COVID. It was in 2020. And so he had a little bit extra time. People weren't going to the tile company. And so he just started selling. He built this generative art platform and got a bunch of buy-in within the space. So it's like that's the culture in Houston. So why? So back to your initial question, which is why is open source like important? Is because when somebody has a limited amount of time because they're doing their corporate job and they want to be a part of a community and they want to also build a community. Open source is also, helpful in the sense that they can contribute in a meaningful way, add to the community, but not necessarily commit fully like as a full-time employee. Like you do it, you come home, you say, hey, there's a couple of different issues that are, and I'm going to build that, right? HtownDAO, for example, has done a lot of really good things in Austin. They're building a ton of and they have great mental models on how they do their tokenomics, and I would say that they're very successful. And they also have a lot of experience also with the legal ramifications of a lot of these DAOs, and to be able to benefit the rest of the city DAOs community in that sense is extremely powerful, because then we can be more impactful on the local side, but yet we're all benefiting as a network. So I think without open source, first of all, Bitcoin and all these other blockchains wouldn't even exist. We need to kind of like jump on that. We need to continue to build open source.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I can give just a simple example. So like we had Ethereum, right? Ethereum is just like the code that was written, and then it became a biggest chain. And then actually, if you think of this, a lot of chains then just copied the source code of Ethereum and launched their successful chains. So and they got more audience in Asia or in some particular regions, and basically they brought more people, like massive amounts of people, to crypto in general, and Ethereum benefited out of it, out of this new audience. And this happens like all the time in crypto. That happens all the time in traditional open source space when people fork in products, and the community grows of both products. So I think that's why open source is like super important. We should continue, building stuff in the open source.
Yeah, I think there was, when I was like first analyzing crypto, there was, I think a guy named Maklev's law, and he was talking about the value of an individual network is the amount of copies that come from it. So exactly what you said, it's like it is valuable for you to create something open, like the network that you've created becomes more valuable because more people are participating in it. So it's not like, it's a different mental model, a different corporate mental model, because corporate, kind of siloed, especially Houston, we think that it takes something away from us when we do that, but in reality it doesn't. It makes the whole ecosystem strong, it makes you stronger. And also another thing about, business, because I had a thought about when you guys were talking about, is the elephant in the room was the monetary policy as well. We're talking about business. Businesses fail for many different reasons, but one of the primary reasons why every due diligence was disappearing during 2020-21 was because the monetary policy was inducing people to just throw money into everything. Literally, if you brought up any due diligence questions, you would be the asshole in the group. It's like, I read the white paper. This actually doesn't make any sense. Oh, dude, shut up! Just throw the money in. You're an idiot. And that's how it was. And it was a function of monetary policy. It wasn't necessarily like there were valuable projects during that time that just potentially they got ignored because they didn't have a marketing strategy during that time. So it's just some of it's just luck of the draw, I think.
Yeah, marketing is definitely important because you want to stand out, especially now, when the bull market is coming, there will be so many projects, how you can actually recognize which one is valuable. And we have a couple more minutes, so maybe that can be the kind of the last question, and we can, each of you let answer, what do you think what are the the most excited about in terms of like Web3 use cases? Like what Web3 use cases you either already saw being built and you think like this is kind of where I feel like the future is going, or something you haven't seen built but you are just like feeling very passionate about and you would kind of recommend to our audience maybe you should look into that. So who want to start with that?
Yeah, so I've been building like infrastructure, like internet infrastructure, like cloud related stuff for years. So that's why that's actually I maybe the most excited about this part. And deep in this decentralized physical infrastructure networks, this term finally got kind of getting bigger and got pick up by community. So I believe I hope that we will finally rebuild a lot of pieces of the internet and a lot of pieces of the infrastructure to and put it to decentralized networks. For sure, I'm excited about cloud computing, but this is what we are working on. But actually, what we are still missing, and people still kind of trying to build it, but we didn't see the successful product in terms of decentralized domain name registry. This is when you put basically domain names on blockchain, there is ENS, there is Handshake. Handshake was the most promising, but it really lacks traction. So it would be really, really nice if we can have domain names on chain, because if you don't know domain names right now, you do not own them. If you really have this, you kind of rent it from the register and they have full control over it. They can revoke it from you, and also ICANN can revoke whatever they want at any moment. So this is really a fragile system. Would be nice to replace it with blockchain solutions.
Yeah, I'm obviously very excited about city DAOs, for one. Also, having to do with privacy, based on the presentation that you gave, privacy is very important because we're operating on public blockchains, and so projects that are privacy oriented. I saw a presentation on homomorphic encryption, and I thought it was extremely. There's so many applications in the medical industry when you have to comply with HIPAA requirements, where you need something like that. So you could technically operate on a public blockchain, but not have to necessarily expose any of the data. That's extremely important. I think before anybody starts using, things on blockchains on a regular basis, privacy has to be prioritized. And yeah, so that's city DAOs and encryption.
What about you, Claire?
This is a very difficult one. But what I would say is that in the space where we are, what I'm most excited about is that we're just at the very, very, very beginning, right? We haven't even started really to see the application of blockchain technology to transform the way that companies interact. I think what we're seeing is the formation of it. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the rest of the world is waking up. And does that matter? Yes, it matters. It matters. It matters that everybody that's using healthcare can understand the value that they're going to get out of this. And I'm quite excited about the idea that people will start to understand it. And just like with any other technology before it, they're not going to understand it because of the technical conversation, but they are going to start understanding the personal value that they're going to get for it. And I think those conversations are going to start very, very soon, where people really start to understand it and can see the value of it. And we have a conversation started in and around, and I think it's really relevant in a world where more than 50% of the world's population are going to be having elections this year. That's a lot of people, by the way. They deserve to know what they're reading, where it comes from, where it's notarized. They should be able to go back and look at that. The writers, the creators of content should be able to have their content made available and referenceable, and have people be able to see it in its unaltered form. And that's very real. And I think that if we can learn to talk about the use cases in ways that everyone can understand, that my kids can understand, we're going to see a huge wave of change. It really is going to be. And we're just at the very, very beginning of it.
Nice, thank you. And you heard it. We are very early, so if you just joined crypto now, you are still very early, a little bit later than Evgeny, but still early. So thank you very much for joining the panel. I learned ton, so I hope everyone else as well. So thank you very much.